I want to welcome all of you to our PolarTREC informational webinar. Today is September 19th, 2016, and this is going to be a fast-paced webinar. We're going to go through a lot of material, hopefully in the next hour or less, and try to respond to everybody's questions that people sent in towards the end. So if you're new to Adobe Connect, basically we will be sharing the presentation in the center here, and there's a list of participants. Most of you are finding the public chat area. At the very end of the webinar, we will also share the file with you, but it can also be found online. As you can see, there's a webcam. I'm Janet Warburton. I'm the project PI, the principal investigator for PolarTREC, and I'll introduce our other staff as we go along here. Anyway, we will be going through this platform and using it for this presentation as well as other things that we do through PolarTREC. If you have questions as we go along, feel free to type them in the chat area, but most questions about the program will be answered at the end. And due to the volume of people, we probably will just have mostly chat and not be talking through the microphone system. So anyway, and if we get people that are having trouble with their microphones, we will try to take care of it, but you can click on the little microphone above the presentation. It mutes it and unmutes it. Again, if you have questions, please type them in, and Judy and I will try to keep track of them and then respond to them at the end, because like I said, we have a lot to get to cover today. This event is being archived, and we'll send it out to everybody that registered, as well as posted on the website in the informational webinar section, and where people are accessing the teacher and researcher application. So we'll do some introductions. I'll explain to you what is ARCIS, and I'll explain to you about PolarTREC, just talk about the project goals and the elements of the program, a little bit about the benefits, and then probably what most of you are here for, the application process and what that looks like. So with that, let me explain what is PolarTREC, and I'm going to actually turn off my video because it does take up a lot of bandwidth, and I don't want to distract you too much. So PolarTREC, or what is ARCIS? ARCIS is, somebody just joined my phone, so we got started, and I'm going to have you *6 your phone to mute it. ARCIS is the Arctic Research Consortium of the United States. We're a nonprofit that's made up of institutions and individual members and people that are interested in the polar regions. ARCIS is based primarily in Fairbanks, Alaska, and hold on a second. I'm going to mute somebody here so I don't get feedback. My apologies. Okay. And we provide leadership and mostly connecting, collaborating, and communicating with people all across the polar regions, and trying to get scientists to talk with one another and to share what they're doing in the polar regions with other people. And PolarTREC is one program that ARCIS does. And I'm sorry, trying to see what we're doing here. That does not work. There we go. So PolarTREC is a professional development program for teachers. It's called Teachers and Researchers Exploring and Collaborating. And as most of you know, this is where a teacher is paired up with a researcher, and they participate in a field-based research experience that usually takes place for anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. It's more, what we like about this program is it's more than just observing and being just sitting back and watching the science happen. It's all about getting teachers involved in the science and working directly with the team. In this presentation, in a little while, I'll talk about the eligibility for the 2017-2018 year. So since 2004, PolarTREC has been part of the Arctic Research Consortium, ARCIS, and we've been running the program. We were the ones that designed it, and we implemented it. And since then, 2004, we've placed over 150 teachers from around the United States in the polar regions and working directly with scientists. And of course, they've shared the science and their knowledge with others, both in the students and the public. This current year, we have a proposal into the National Science Foundation for continuing funding. Right now, that funding is pending. However, we're still going through the application process, and we will keep anyone that has applied to the program up to date on where we are with our funding status. So the PolarTREC staff, this is just a few of the key players in it. There's a lot more employees that work with ARCIS. I said we are based in Fairbanks, Alaska, so that's where the office is. However, many of our staff also telecommute and are based around the United States, including our executive director, Bob Rich, who is based out of Washington, D.C. Myself, Janet Warburton, I'm based in Anchorage, Alaska, and Judy Fonstock, who works with me very closely, is on this webinar today, is based in New Hampshire. There's some other people that, if you are part of PolarTREC, you'll get to know them as you work with the ARCIS staff. So before I get into the how people apply to the program, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about what our goals and project objectives are and kind of what it looks like. Again, a lot of this stuff is on the website. We have a very comprehensive website, and you can pretty much find anything you want on there, including the same material. So our goal is to, well, actually our long-term vision is really to create this successful approach to professional development and to get people excited about the polar regions, and in particular, we're looking at inspiring the next generation of scientists or students, and also increasing and trying to make people more literate about the polar regions and STEM. We do this through this program in 4 different ways. We improve STEM content knowledge of the teachers that are involved in the program and help them transfer this knowledge into the classroom. We also increase their knowledge in use of STEM practices with their students in the classroom. And we have talked a little bit about some of the results, but we have good data that shows that when teachers have gone through our program, not just for the short term, for the long term, that this has indeed increased how they teach science in the classroom. We've also want to increase students' understanding engagements about the polar regions and hopefully inspire them to become scientists or at least become knowledgeable about the polar regions and get not only for the short term, for the long term. We also work with the researchers, and we hope that the researchers become more familiar with the education community and understand the benefits of tying science and educators together and working together. So those are our long-term goals of this program. How we look at this program is basically in 4 different parts. Of course, central to the whole PolarTREC experience is the actual field research experience, and that takes, that's kind of the main activity. Surrounding that, in this model, we have activities that help bring that experience to the classroom and to the public, and a variety of tools that we use to do that. We explore how to work with other educators and alumni and how to develop and grow as a teacher and utilize this professional development experience. We also look at how we can sustain this experience long after the field season. So it's a very comprehensive and kind of a holistic approach to professional development for teachers. I mentioned a little bit of this, but some of the key program activities are that we have anybody that's part of the program goes through a one-week orientation. It's in Fairbanks, Alaska. And during that orientation is when we introduce the tools that we use for the program, primarily technology tools. We talk about transferring this experience, and we have a bunch of tools through the education and outreach planning pieces to help a participant synthesize the experience and figure out how to get the most out of it. We talk about actual science and introduce the participants to polar science and some key issues that are happening in the polar regions. We talk about safety, and we also use it as a team building exercise. Other key activities are related to once again as a teacher is selected into the program or a researcher. It's a selective process, and it's meaning that we have a selection committee that reviews applications and reduces it down to a final pool, and this pool of applicants are then we're matched with possible researchers, and in the researcher actually selects their teacher, which I'll discuss more in detail in a little bit. We also work with the National Science Foundation logistic support contracts, both for the Arctic and the Antarctic, and they're very involved in helping us prepare teachers for these experiences and working with the research teams. We cover the substitute costs and other expenses associated with the program and deploying to the field. We involve our alumni in a lot of different ways, which I'll cover some of that in a little bit. And we also have some travel money for teachers and researchers to get together before and after the field season. And then we try to do our best at supporting this ever-growing network and alumni body in the best ways we can. So those are kind of the key activities. And I'm hoping Judy will ping me if there's some relevant questions, but I think we'll get to most of them at the end here. So this is what our timeline looks like. It's starting now in September. Our goal is that we'll have everybody selected, and if you're selected by January of 2017, and if you're selected, this is what it looks like for you to be a participant. There's different webinars. There's the orientation. We have webinars for both Arctic and Antarctic teachers. We start a pre-deployment or pre-field process in the spring for anyone going out to the Arctic in late spring or over the summer. And then we kind of follow up and wrap up with those teachers in the fall. Concurrently, we start working with the Antarctic teachers and starting to get them deployed and ready for their fall to winter deployments. And then we have activities that wrap up with both groups of teachers, Arctic and Antarctic teachers. And again, this will be posted on the website. There's an older version, but this is on the website as well. So for a teacher, we talked about this already, but the actual experience itself, you're matched up, of course. You have experience from anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks, sometimes a little bit longer if you're on a shipboard experience. It's intense work, and you become a member of the team. At least that's the ultimate goal. It does involve being trained, and some of this actually takes place with your researcher depending on the nature of the science. And one of our big expectations is that you're communicating what is going on to the public as a teacher, because you serve as almost an outreach person for the team as well. This gives you a sense of where some of the expeditions have been. And kind of pointing back to the three elements of our model. So basically teachers get immersed, you work with the researchers, and we do have a number of ways that we try to, but mostly with alumni, try to bring back those experiences into the classroom. One of the things we do ask teachers to do is to develop lessons that meet both national, state standards, and now NGSS. So that's one piece of the professional development. Like I mentioned already, one of the main roles of a teacher on these expeditions is also outreach, and there's a variety of different types of outreach. But we currently support a lot of online tools to do Polar Connect presentations, basically webinars like you're in right now, although a little more interactive, not just me talking away, and you talking away and you sharing your excitement. We also have the journals, and teachers, we work with you on videos. There's commenting to journaling. And, of course, once you've been on the experience, the opportunity to share the data that you, from the research team, or just the aspects, anything that the research team has shared with you, and connecting your students with those teams is an important piece of working with your classroom and bringing it back to your classroom. I mentioned this already about the community, sustained community and support, but we do have funding to try to do post-deployment travel support. So that means, like, if you want to go to a conference, or the teacher wants to go visit the researcher at their lab, or the researcher wants to go visit the teacher in the school, we have some funding for that. Every year we match alumni teachers with the incoming new cohort of teachers, and they provide kind of a mentor role. We call those teacher partners, and they're there for advice and helping the teacher kind of bring this experience, get prepared for it, as well as figure out how to transfer it to the classroom. We have a large and ever-growing network of people, both researchers and teachers, and you can tap into those resources. Along the lines, there's also online resources, and this doesn't mean you have to be a teacher, a participating teacher to access them. These are all there already, but we have a very extensive learning resources database, which includes all the lessons that the teachers have made over the years, as well as from different activities that we've posted over the years. We've added those resources, and there's just really some interviews with researchers. It's really extensive, so if you haven't seen the learning resources, please check that out. Of course, there's the email list, and there's also social media tools that keep you all connected. Okay, so program benefits. Sorry, lots of talking on my half, and you doing whatever you need to do over there, but it is a lot of this we've talked on it about already, but what sets us aside, I guess, from some of the other TRE programs is that we work really hard to make sure that you're part of a science team, and that the scientists understand that expectation and are prepared for it, I should say. So you aren't just dumped into the science team. We spend a lot of time connecting with the researchers beforehand to make sure that they're ready for you to join them in the field. And then again, during orientation in Fairbanks and throughout the whole process, we also spend a lot of time about how you'll use this experience because it is professional development, not only for your current classroom, but classrooms in the future and just wherever you want it, wherever your professional goals take you as a teacher. Teachers have seen this experience as a rejuvenation to their career, and they like to be treated as a professional, and they're seen as a professional, and that's one of the things a lot of teachers that might be mid-career and wondering what to do next, this kind of rejuvenates them and gets them excited to teach STEM again. You are connected to an ever-growing group of polar climate professionals, both teachers and scientists and teacher leaders that are taking these experiences way beyond whatever we dreamed of. You also will gain science content and technology skills and probably a lot of other things that aren't listed on here. Some people find it life-changing, confidence building, maybe switching careers within education or seeking continuing education after these experiences. So there's just a whole lot that teachers get out of it, which is good because it is professional development for them. For the researcher side, and I don't know how many researchers we have on today, but what we've heard from researchers that have participated in this is they love the enthusiastic, hardworking new team member that they get, we get a lot of compliments about how well they're prepared, the teacher is prepared, just today we did a post-field call with one of our recent teams in the Arctic, and the researcher made this comment about outreach, that they were very excited about all the outreach the teacher had done for them, and that it was nice to get their science out beyond who they typically reach, which isn't a whole lot of people, but out into the public. They are excited about the connection to education and learning more about what is going on in the field of education and the challenges that teachers have to face. A lot of researchers are very surprised at how much energy and time it takes to do lesson plans and how much time and energy it is to keep up with all the changing educational initiatives and all the challenges of just getting science into a classroom, or even these STEM topics. So they also like that connection, not only for the short term, for the long term, because they're always trying to find ways in, so you provide that ability and ease for them. And also, you train the researchers. Most of the researchers we work with also are faculty at universities, and they have to teach classes as well. And so this, you guys talk about tips and things, and how do you talk about these kinds of science concepts, and they learn a lot from teachers working side by side with them. Of course, we're also in this to see how the students benefit. These are comments that have come from both students and scientists or teachers as well. And basically, they are excited to see that ordinary people do science. Not that a teacher is ordinary, but you are in their eyes, and they're like, wow, my teacher went and did that. They get pretty excited about that, and they start thinking of the possibility that they might be able to do something like that in the future. They get to see that science is fun and exciting, and they get to see that a lot of the myths and misconceptions we have about science are busted when they have teachers working with them or in their classroom and have done these experiences. And of course, they get to make all those connections because you've made connections, and they get to do more inquiry-based science because you're better at teaching at science and have some great new ideas that you want to bring to the classroom. They also get to reach out and meet researchers and have opportunities that they might not have had before. So those are obviously some of the great student benefits. And just to give you an idea of impacts or, excuse me, things to give you just an idea of what we've done. The teachers over the years have produced over 100 lessons, so those are on the resources. We've had lots of people join us through the live events, most of them for the first time. We have lots of visitors to our website, and now we're really doing a lot more on our social media, so we'll have to add that to here. And we also partner up with some of these other agencies that you see listed on the screen. All right. Here we go. Here's the nitty-gritty. So the application process. And I see Judy's asked you guys to hold off to your questions towards the end. I think that'll be the best thing if you can. So here's the application timeline. And what I want to point out is that we're in September, and applications close here in early October, October 10th. We start having our review process in October and November, and then we start working with the researchers that have applied to the program and having them start selecting their teacher in November and early December. We anticipate selections being done by January 1st, 2017, and we'll notify you along the way here where you are in that process, which I'll go over in a moment. We have our orientation for February. The dates at this time have not been set, so we'll keep people that are selected posted about those dates. Spring is when the Arctic expeditions are going on, and late summer through the into 2018 are when the Antarctic expeditions are going on. And of course, this is all pending funding. That's a timeline. So with eligibility, I just wanted to point out a few things that I know some people that have applied to the program before have not seen. We had a few changes this year. Actually, they were in place last year, but more this year I decided to highlight them so that it would save us some time in the review process. But basically, you need to be, if you're a teacher that's applying to the program, you need to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident of the United States or its possessions. This year, our teachers, the grades we're focusing on are 6 through 12, and we are looking for classroom teachers, not informal educators, community college teachers, or teachers that aren't, well, we'll just leave it at that, informal educators and community college teachers. There's some teachers, no primary teachers. So if you're a teacher that is working in a school and you're going between classes and you don't have a set class, just email us and just kind of let us know where you are, and I could tell you for sure. Also, this is open to any discipline or subject matter. You do not need to be a science teacher. I know that that comes up quite a bit. You can be an art teacher, and you can be a math teacher. You could be a librarian. Researchers eligibility, we're looking for projects that are primarily funded by NSF, where you're collaborating with an NSF-funded project. If that's not the case, we want you to email us. We have done other placements with other agencies and partnered with them. So don't let that be a deterrent. Just give us a heads up and we can talk to you individually about that. You do not need to be a U.S. citizen to apply to the program as a researcher. Just again, let us know so we can talk with NSF. And we're looking for, obviously, projects that are polar or subpolar. So if you have any questions about eligibility, which sometimes I know people do, it is fine. Just give us a heads up by email, and we'll try to address it as best we can. And if we aren't sure, we'll talk to our program manager at NSF. So how this all works, is matching is like after you've applied to the program, the next phase is for us to pull together a selection committee, and Judy and I do that. This committee is made up of alumni, teachers, and researchers, and they are volunteering to review and read applications. So what happens is once we get all the teacher applications, which there's usually about 200 or so of them, they're reviewed internally, and then they're turned over to the selection committee, and they are a subset of the original set. We take out applications that clearly haven't been, basically a quick run of applications, teacher applications if they haven't been filled out or incomplete or are not meet any of the eligibility requirements. So that can narrow that group down to about 100 depending on the year, and those are reviewed by the selection committee. The selection committee has a rubric that they work with, and they also do discussion of everybody's application, and they narrow down the applications to a top 40. At the same time, we're looking at the researcher applications, which there's not nearly that many. I wish there were, but there's not nearly that many. It's usually about 25 or so of researchers that have applied. And then we start looking at our researcher applications and who we have for teacher applications, and we start kind of matching them together. There's some elements in the teacher application that ask about your scientific area of interest, your location, kind of your preference for different science disciplines, and we use those answers to try to figure out, as well as where you might be teaching, what kind of classes you're teaching, to try to figure out which of the research projects best fits your interest. And then we give the researchers research projects that we've selected about 6 to 10 different applications, and then they review them, and then they tell us who the top 3 teachers that they want to interview are out of that set. We set up interviews with the researcher, ARCIS, and the prospective interviewee, and we have a suite of questions, and of course the researcher can ask questions as well, and then eventually to get selected. In between all of that, if you are in that final pool of teachers and you get selected for an interview, we will call you and tell you that you've been selected. We will tell you about the project. We will send you information that we have about the project so that you are not going into the interview blind. You do know and we ask you if you're interested in being interviewed, and we usually have the time frame of the field work and everything. So it's not a blind interview. You get some material to think about whether you want to be interviewed or not, and considered for the opportunity or not. All of that takes place this fall, and early December. Our goal is to be wrapped up with most of the interviews by early December, way before Christmas, and then have kind of do some final legwork over the holidays and be ready to go by January 1st. I did forget to mention that for this year, we anticipate 12 slots available for teacher and researcher teams, 6 in the Arctic and 6 in the Antarctic. So about the application form itself, the application for both teachers and researchers are online. They're both web form based online. Both of them have a Word template document that you can fill out and cut and paste from into the web form. A very important thing is that the web form does not save. So when you open that up and you start cutting and pasting your information, you need to do it all in one fell swoop. The teacher application has short answer questions some like little checkboxy things, and some essay questions. Some of the essay questions, I believe, go over 200 words. Well, maybe one does, but there is a word limit, and be cognitive of that word limit because your paragraph will get cut off. They don't accept any attachments either. You may want to research those and be prepared to answer the questions by downloading that web form, and just that will give you some time to do that. That's why we have it there for you. Your email address is needed to complete the application, and it really needs to be separate from a school one or one that gets spammed a lot. Because we'll use that address. That's how you'll get confirmations. That's how we'll notify you about all sorts of things. So please make sure your email address you have is a good one. If you are applying to the program, whether you're a researcher or a teacher, and you want to work with a researcher or a teacher that you already know, that does work in the polar regions, that is fine. You can apply together basically as a team. There is another additional piece of paperwork that needs to be done, and it's called the pre-existing supplemental form, I believe. It's also on the website. That does need to be turned in before the deadline. It's a Word document. It's not a web form, so you just download it, fill it out, work on it together, and send it by email to us. And if you have questions about pre-existing relationships, feel free to email us. Again, teacher applications are due Monday, October 10th at 5 p.m. Alaska Daylight Time. Researchers, we hope to get your application around the same time. However, we do have a sliding deadline for you. Just let us know if you're going to apply and where you are, what your questions are. Teachers, there is no sliding deadline. It's 5 p.m. and the form closes down. So some other tips. I can't tell you how many times we give you a Word document. You can do grammar, spell check, proofread it, have your friends read it. It's nice to have a good, clean application. Make sure that you have concise answers, thorough and concise. They don't need to be long things, but they do need to be clear. I already talked about word limits. Really, please, this is professional development, and so we're looking to see how this fits into your career and what your personal and career goals are. So be clear about what those are, not for short term and for long term if you've gone that far. Really outline your ideas of how you think you will share this, and be creative, imaginative, realistic, and realize that we have a lot of tools online, so please look around and see what we've already done and what other teachers are doing, and go beyond that, or reiterate it, but put your own spin on it. We just want to see how, kind of get an idea of how you share this experience, even though you don't know where exactly you're going or the science, or you've never done anything like this. This is a time for you to be creative. If you have examples, post those and make them part of your answer. Make sure you read all the parts, do your homework, and look over the website. And I've already went over the email. Things that really annoy the heck out of us are misspelling PolarTREC. It can be in more places, so please spell it right. And the word Arctic and Antarctic. We realize that going to these places is very exotic. It's exciting. Not many people in the world get the opportunity to travel to the Arctic or the Antarctic, and that's fine to show your enthusiasm. And I'm glad you're excited about that. But make sure that we understand that this is an experience not just for you, but about your students as well. We do get people that are very vague or very brief, and they might have had some enthusiasm, but they just don't explain themselves. So please make sure that you explain yourself and be clear about it. Incomplete answers, of course, don't fly, and we don't accept any additional documentation. So if you have questions, let us know, you know, try to clean applications. It's not too bad. So what happens if you get selected? So kind of covered some of this already, but basically if you're selected, you get to have a 1-week orientation in Fairbanks. There's training, there's travel support. We give you equipment like computers and laptops, cameras and things that you need to do your job. You're also given outdoor gear if you want it to go out in the field. A big question we get from a lot of people is we do cover substitute. So if your expedition takes place during the school year, we do cover the substitute fees for that, including your trip to orientation. What I do ask is that as you go through the process, whether it be when you apply or if you're getting close to the final pool of applications, that you do confirm with your administration, especially if you're interested in an Antarctic expedition, that you are allowed to leave for school and that they will let you leave, and that they are okay with substitute. Sometimes that's a showstopper for some teachers. So make sure your administration is okay with that and you'll understand your school's policies. We cover expenses, and then, like I said, we have some limited traveling pre and post travel funds as well. And we cover some miscellaneous expenses like teachers that are going to Antarctica. They have to go through a physical qualification process, which means they need medical and dental work done, and we'll pick up things that insurance won't cover. If you're a researcher and you're selected, we'll work with you and whoever your logistics provider is. NSF itself has their contract logistics providers, and they pay for the travel to and from the field and expenses related for the participant to go into the field. We also, and then if they can't cover stuff, we'll pick that up. Also, we cover the equipment, we do all the training, and we help the teacher get ready to communicate from the field. We work with the researchers and logistics providers on that. And things that we don't cover for a researcher are their own travel, researchers' travel to the orientation. We do cover now travel for you to meet your teacher, and post-field travel for you to meet your teacher. So that the slide isn't quite accurate on that. And then things that we don't cover might be communication costs that you have from for you to talk to your teacher and things. But we try to cover a lot, at least all the travel stuff as much as we can for the researchers when they're working with a teacher. Costs that teachers may incur might be gear or like prescription glasses or things like that we don't have. Sometimes we can't cover all the insurance, but actually we've covered this most of the time. So we don't cover any personal travel before or after an expedition. That's all on your own. We don't cover salary usually. We cover substitute costs. So so we don't do stipends either. So anyway, if you get into some of these questions, it's best just ask us what we cover and because everybody's situation might be a little bit different. Time commitments. Basically, there's that 1 week of orientation. So for a teacher, we actually expect it lasts almost a year, really, our relationship with you by the things that you're committed to. So You've got the 1 week in Alaska. You're going to participate in some webinars. You have 1 or 2 pre-filled phone calls or virtual meetings. You've got your field time. You're going to have some time that you need to practice all the things that we've taught you. You may have some time related to your learning more about the project. There may be even a trip to go see your researcher before you go out in the field. You've got outreach activities and a variety of requirements, and those take time, usually up to anywhere from post-expedition. The post-field requirements can take upwards of 3 to 6 months depending on the person and their schedule. So I usually tell teachers to expect about a 1-year commitment with ARCIS from the beginning of training all the way to fulfilling all your evaluation and program requirements. And it's, you know, sometimes they're more intense, like obviously being in the field, and the orientation and other things are scattered throughout the year. For a researcher, it's not as expensive. You'll be reviewing and reading and selecting applicants from the applications we give you, and that just depends on you and your team. We have a few webinars that researchers are required to participate in. We have the pre- and post-field logistic calls, which are usually about an hour or so each with the teacher and with ARCIS. Of course, you have to work with the teacher in the field and communicate with them on and off before and afterwards, as well as maybe a few outreach activities that you both decide you want to participate in, like maybe co-presenting at a meeting or something like that. And then there's some evaluation components, and they're not too time intensive. So from the researcher side, it's mostly just working with the teacher as they go through this process, and then of course whatever you decide to do afterwards and what your ongoing collaboration is. So if you didn't get picked, this is what happens to you. We want you to apply again in the future. Of course, you can follow everybody on the website. You can read more about the questions in the journals, view photos, all those kinds of things. Lots of resources on the website. We have lots of Polar Connect events coming up, so we hope you'll join us on those. There's, like I said, there's the resource database. There's also a couple of networks, the Association of Polar Early Career Scientists, APEX, and Polar Educators International. I encourage you to join those networks if you're truly interested in working with polar scientists or polar educators, and participate in any of the online learning opportunities. All right, so I'm going to take a quick break here as we transition into questions and see where we are. Okay. Judy's getting us squared away for the questions. So what we did for questions, and I'm sure there's some that came up in the chat. Maybe let's go through the chat, Judy. Can you tell me if there's any questions that came up that we need to answer before we get to this list of them?
Hi, Janet.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Yes, actually, there have not been any questions up till this point, but I see 2 that are typed in right now. One is from Melissa. Can we see the selection committee rubric?
Yeah, I prefer not to. I don't know that there's anything. If you just write a clean application, it's not weighted or anything. It's just going to, all the rubric has is a score. It has two different scoring components. The first is the top layer is a rubric that's basically just looking at how well you answered a combination of questions. It's not by question. It's like, did you explain how you'd use this in your classroom? Did you explain how you would, do you see that this would be a professional development experience that you would utilize? Those kind of questions. So the first one kind of looks at a series of questions that you're responding to in the application and kind of groups them. And then the bottom, which is probably the more important part, is the bottom part of the rubric is about gut feeling reactions. So some people are really good writers, and so we take that into recognition, and we have a gut feeling ranking, like, do you think this applicant, do you just really like this person? Do you think they'd benefit from this experience after reading everything that they responded to? And it's a 1 through 3. And then the reason why I'm reluctant to give you the rubric is because that's not the whole process. The rubric is just one of the pieces, and the next process that the selection committee goes through, which is really important, is we discuss everybody. So it gives everybody a number, but the number is not the end. We've had people at the bottom of the pile go to the top and actually be selected for projects because of the discussion piece. And the discussion piece is when the selection committee gets together and we actually discuss every applicant. So we will go through every application, discuss them, discuss the merits, if there's something that somebody just feels really strongly about, and they move up to the top pool. So that's where I'm going with the rubric. What are some of the examples of types of research? I think that's in this question, so we'll get to that one in a moment. Are you able to choose? That's in there. I'm going to go to Brenda's. Are there any recommendations for do's or don'ts for researchers when filling out their application? No, just be really thorough in filling out your application. Make sure we have a clear idea of what the field work is like. Really, there's no do's or don'ts on that one. Mike's, I got yours is covered in this list. Has publication been a part of some teachers' experience? For Piper's question about publication, I would say yes. And those are under products, resources actually, and resources. Some teachers have actually done peer-reviewed journals. Okay, I'm going to go through these questions, and I think it will answer some of the ones that were in the middle that I skipped over. Applications. How many researcher applications are we expecting? About 25. Does the program accept first-year teachers? Yep, we do. We've had some first-year teachers. I know it's challenging for you to fill out your application, but just try to really explain how you'd benefit from an experience so early in your career. How many times does a person typically apply before being accepted into the program? Well, we've had some people that apply a lot. I don't know. Some people do it the first time. It just depends on the application, and also depends on the research team and the research project. So there isn't really an average or anything. It goes from people who've applied every year and haven't gotten selected to many people apply the first year and get selected. How are applications evaluated with a rubric? Yes, we already went over that. Is there any preparation that would need to be done before research? I assume this is for the teacher getting prepared for the expedition. We go over that with you, and the researcher will tell you if there's any additional training, or usually they send you materials about their research project and share it. Are we given a specific thing to research once we are accepted, or are we supposed to come up with our own project? You are doing the research of the scientists, so you do not come up with your own project. If selected for the program, will there be a choice between different options for polar research? So I explained a little bit about the matching process. It really does depend on what your scientific interests are and what you say in your application, and also what you pick or what you kind of teach. So, for instance, if you're interested in meteorites, but there isn't anything on astronomy that you actually teach, and we don't have astronomy as a research project that year, then you won't be matched up with one. And so we'll look at other things in your application and say, okay, well, they teach geosciences. So what other geosciences projects do we have? And we would send your application off to maybe other geoscience projects to those researchers, and then they would look at it and kind of balance you between the other ones that they have and see if they want to interview you. So you don't get to pick your expedition or even the research, but you can point us in the right direction of your interest in your application. So we take those to heart. Let's see, if selected, let's see, what are the post-trip expectations of teachers? I covered that a little bit in the timeline. Basically, you will have lesson plans that are due. We have a STEM experience report, which is a report that goes out to the public. There's some wrap-up on journals, a few evaluation components, and then you have to turn in materials and things related to your expedition. So it takes, like I said, it takes 3 to 6 months to do post follow-up, depending on how good you are at organizing and following up on things. Requirements. Does the program accept teachers in disciplines other than STEM science? Yes, all disciplines. Should we have some specific knowledge or background in the areas we indicate interest in, or is it okay if we just want to know more about it? That's fine. You do not have to have specific knowledge or background in any of the areas that are on the application. It's fine if you know nothing about them. But the key is that you can take whatever you're learning and apply it. So make sure that we understand that as well. Other questions, would there be an opportunity to communicate with the school? Excuse me. Yes. While you're out in the field, we do our best to have you communicate through a live event or PolarConnect events, and we do journaling and blogging. So I encourage you to look at the website and see all the examples of how people are communicating. Also, social media is used quite a bit as well. Are subs paid for? What would my school need to provide to support this? Yes, subs are paid for, and basically it's a reimbursement process to the school or the school district. They send us an invoice after you have come back from your experience, and same with the orientation. So it's a reimbursement process. Is PolarTREC tracking long-term impacts on teachers who have participated in the program by association and their students, by association, their students? The answer is yes. We are tracking it. We have an evaluator that is part of our program, and we have some pre- and post-survey questions that the teacher will give to their students as part of this, our evaluation process. So, and we use that data to kind of track the long-term impacts on students, although it's not as good as the data that we have on teachers. Let's see, because we also do evaluation components that track, that we send out to researchers and teachers, alumni over many years. So that's kind of also how we do long-term impacts. Are there avenues for previous participants to serve as teacher leaders? So a great question, and I'm actually very passionate about this subject at the moment. I wouldn't say they're avenues. We try really hard to find opportunities as they come up. I'm hoping to develop an avenue for the teacher leaders that come from this program. There is a growing network of alumni, and we work really hard to support them in all their efforts. Sometimes it's just not feasible, but right now we don't have a regular program or something that's just, specifically for alumni and helping and continuing to develop teacher leaders. So beyond this experience, we just try to support them as much as we can and use them in our training of new teachers. But I'm looking for that avenue. What are the dates for the training session in Alaska? Right now it's February, and we don't have the final details on the specific dates. All right, so those are those questions. Judy, help me out here. Where are we with the questions down below?
Scott has a question. If we have very broad interests, is it better to force ourselves to narrow our focus in the application?
No, it's not. You can be broad. It's fine.
Okay. Renee has a question. How can you best prepare yourself for the expedition?
Sorry, what was that again?
Renee is asking, how can you best prepare yourself for the expedition?
I think you need to, well, we go over all of that, so don't worry about that right now. If you get selected, we'll help you prepare for yourself.
And Roy asks, is it possible for a teacher to be selected by multiple researchers for interviews?
Yes, that can happen, yeah, but we'll talk to that person if that happens.
Okay. Michael asked, how important is or are outdoor skills, first aid training, etc., in your decision making? Janet, are you there?
Yes, sorry. I'm having a headphone issue here. What was the question?
How important is or are outdoor skills, first aid training, etc., in your decision making?
It's not. I mean, put it down if you've got that kind of background, and we'll place you with a expedition that's well suited for your background. So if you don't have that kind of background, don't worry about it. We'll make sure you aren't climbing Denali or that, some crazy expedition like that. We will match you based on what you got. So your answers in your application need to be pretty thorough so that we do a good job of matching. But even after that happens, if for something you left something out of your application or you're worried about something, don't worry about it until the interview. We can discuss all of those kinds of things. And you can also always decline an interview because you think that the expedition might not be appropriate for you.
Okay. And right now our last, Susan asked, is it possible to be eliminated from the application process if we are too specific in our research interests, even if the application is clean and well written?
No, not unless, no, you won't be eliminated for being too specific. We may not find a match for you. Like I said, if you're talking all about space physics and we don't have a space physics project this year, then that might be an issue. But for the most part, I wouldn't worry about that too much. There's just sometimes we just don't get research projects that are in those specific disciplines. But no, you won't be eliminated because of it. We just might not find a good match for you.
Okay, Sarah has a question. How confident are you in getting funded from NSF?
I don't know, 90% confident? We'll know soon enough.
Julie asks if we are open to doing any type of research and are interested more so in the experience and what we can bring to the classroom, would that disqualify us?
I don't get that question. What do you think, Judy?
I think if you're just open to anything and everything and just really interested in bringing it back to the school, I don't know, instead of being specific, if that would disqualify you. I don't know, Julie, if you have something more specific than that, let us know.
Yeah, you aren't going to be disqualified if you give us a specific idea on how you want to bring it to a classroom. We're just looking for ideas. So, yeah. The things that disqualify people are poor applications and poor responses. The reason why people don't get to the top 40 is just there's a whole list of things. It's mostly you know, a numbers thing, but also, I don't know, just not clear ideas about what they want to do with the experience, really.
Okay. Julia asked, if a teacher and a researcher apply together, if one doesn't quite make it, does that mean that the other is out for the opportunity?
We asked specifically on the application, if the teacher and researcher are applying together, if the teacher wants to be considered for additional research opportunities or just with the researchers. So that's your decision.
And we have Martha asked, do the Arctic expeditions tend to be more terrestrial or more water-based?
It varies every year. It's a little bit of everything.
Okay. All right. That's what we have right now. If anyone else has a question, please type it in the chat window.
Anything else?
We have one person typing, Renee.
Okay.
Are the research projects different every year, Renee asked?
Yes, they are different every year. And we won't know who they are until they apply.
All right. Looks like, unless anyone else has any other questions. Oh, Renee is typing again. And Julie. Oh, Renee said thank you, and so did Julie.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, this will be archived, and